Hi everyone, welcome to GMAT Club mock interview winter session. I'm here with Abhishek today. My name is Souvik. I'm a recent alum from the Michigan Ross School of Business. We are going to do a quick mock interview of how a top business school interview would look like. We're going to ask some questions. We're going to use Abhishek as a prop here, but we are going to also assume that he is applying to business school in round two. So round two interviews are going to come up very soon. Round two decisions are due in March. So generally, what happens in a business school interview is that you only have your resume for your interviewer. And the interviewer generally, for most schools, knows nothing about you other than your resume. They haven't read your essays. So that's what's called the blind interview. However, in some business school interviews would also have access to the rest of your application as well. So today what we're going to do here is a blind interview where I don't know anything about the candidate. I'm going to ask Abhishek to hand out his resume. I just have his resume as a PDF in the background, actually. And then we're going to ask some school-specific questions, and then we are going to jump into some behavioral questions. And after each question, I'm going to analyze Abhishek's answer and give him feedback, right? So that's going to be the format. So Abhishek, before we jump into the mock interview, can you tell me about what schools you're looking at? Are you applying this year, next year? What's the plan here?
Yeah, hi. Uh, I'm applying for round two, the fall 2021 intake, and the schools that I'm targeting for are HEC, ESSEC, ESCP, Duke, Cornell, and Georgetown for the Masters in Management program.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Awesome. So I'm going to jump into the interview mode real quick. So what we're going to do here, Abhishek, is I'm going to ask you a question, and then you will have about anywhere between 2 to 4 minutes. Anything over that makes it a little bit harder for any interviewer to digest, right?
okay, yeah,
And then I'm going to give you feedback. Then we're going to jump into question two. You're going to answer.
yeah,
I'm going to give you feedback, right? Does that
yeah,
sound good as a format?
yeah, I get it.
Okay, cool. So, all right. Okay, Abhishek, great to meet you.
Yeah,
I am an alum from HEC Paris. I'm happy to be your interviewer today. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
yeah, I'm Abhishek. I'm 20 years old, and I'm from India. Currently, I'm in my final year of my bachelor's. I will be completing it by May next year, and I'm targeting for the MIM program at your school.
Okay. So, all right. So real quick, generally, when somebody asks you, tell me a little bit more about yourself, I mean, that's obviously an opportunity to tell that person, your name and, like what you're doing right now. But
Okay.
it's also an opportunity to introduce yourself and some of your background. So, what I would recommend for this answer is not to restrict yourself to just, one or two things. So you can generally talk a little bit more. So you can
Okay.
talk about, like what you are passionate about, why you did the course that you're doing, like why did you pick up engineering, right? Maybe some of the because you don't have work experience, um,
Yeah.
maybe some of the highlights of your engineering background. Maybe talk about some internships, and also um, end the answer with why you want to do an MBA. So then that would again that would give yourself a little bit more space for a more personal introduction, but that would also build more rapport with your interviewer. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I get it now.
Okay, cool. So can you tell me a little bit more about why do you want to do an MBA and why HEC?
Yeah. I want to pursue a master's in management degree from HEC.
Okay.
There are two reasons for my ambition to pursue this degree. Uh, first, First is the intrinsic reason. Though I am from engineering background, I felt a natural inclination towards management. When I studied subjects related to management and economics in my undergrad, it had a kind of impact on me. I was mesmerized by how the demand and supply curves in economics and financial principles in management work, and really I look forward to study further on these topics. And in line with this, I also completed some courses on Coursera regarding finance principles and project management. And coming to a second reason, I was I was like aiming to start a startup, my own startup. I also made a prototype and a business plan for it. I approached investors. The investors looked at, like, I pitched it to the investors. Investors rejected it. The cause of rejection was, like I understood, was my lack of experience in management field, and they also cited like something was missing in the business plan, like for financial forecasts. So from then I decided to pursue my further studies in management, and particularly masters in management.
Okay.
Out the curriculum anywhere, like MIM, since it was designed for graduates or recent graduates too. And coming to why HEC, first of all, in general, I allowed the curriculum. Second, I allowed the research policy of HEC. I'm also interested in pursuing research during my masters, so I allowed the research policy that HEC has, like to calculate or to more focus on the topics that have effects on the society or environment or technological changes. So I also have, since I mentioned before that I completed a few courses in Coursera. During that, I had many doubts, and especially I framed two research topics which I am willing to do, which I am willing to conduct in my master's degree. And coming to the faculty of HEC, especially Romeo Tidon Gap, Mr. Romeo Tidon Gap is what I am really looking forward to. His research paper on variance and risk really mesmerized me. The way he divided the variance in between a good part and a bad part, I was amazed with it, and I am really looking forward to work with him during my masters. And also, HEC has various clubs. Out of that, label sauce, the cooking club in HEC interests me. Cooking was my passion, and I loved cooking. I want to introduce Indian cuisine to my peers there and learn about French cuisine and their cooking methods. And coming to the academics, uh, I would like to definitely part of the finance club, finance transaction at HEC Paris. I was really captivated by their mission to publish podcasts and articles related to finance on recent issues. Yeah, that's why I chose HEC and MIM degree.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So I think this one was better. I think this is a better answer compared to your "tell me about yourself." I think you clearly have done a fair amount of research in why you want to go to HEC, but also why HEC might be a good fit for you. So okay, so the things that I think I liked the fact that you're talking about going to a more research-oriented program. I think that's a good
Yeah,
start. I also like the fact that you tie in that, hey, I had a startup idea and I went to some investors, and one of the main reasons I could not make it work was that I did not have certain experiences. So
yeah,
I think that's a good start. The problem with that answer as it stands today is that why can't you go and get that experience, right? So like if you
exactly.
have two options, you can work in like marketing or do something in finance or whatever
Yeah,
as an undergrad, versus going to business school, right? So I think
Okay.
that wasn't all that clear to me. Because if you are getting rejected because you don't have experience, then how would
Okay.
so how would going to business school help? Because business school is not going to give you experience, right? Like business school is going to give you some academic idea of management, right? But
Yeah.
it's not a
Right.
substitute for real experience. So that
Yeah.
I think was missing there. Yeah, tell me, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I was actually about to say that to gain a like experience in management, first I want to hone my general management skills because my long-term goal
Mhm.
is to pursue my own ventures. So eventually, business
Okay.
school will help to bridge the gap by giving me the skills required for management.
Right. So, in that case, and I would give you like, thousands of examples where people have gone on to starting their own ventures without going to business school or without going to a master's in management program. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
in
I
that
know.
case, like how would you justify like going to business school when so many people have launched their startups without having to go to business school?
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I know that many people launch their startups without any management experience, but I personally feel when I did an internship at Inmalkat e-commerce, which is a small startup, it is where
Okay.
that I realized that every small detail of a business is very essential for success of any business, and also we can achieve more by knowing the proper management skills than not knowing them. We can like for
Mhm.
example, in my case, I went to the investors without knowing what is a business plan, what should be template. I framed it according to me and I presented it to them. So if I would have
Right.
known the management skills before, so that would not lead to a rejection, and I would prepare it in more better way. I could communicate in a more better way.
Mhm.
That's why I felt inclined to pursue master's degree.
Right. I think that makes a lot more sense. And I think when you're talking about your, why MBA or why MIM or why any degree, I think
Okay.
adding that level of detail and color will be really helpful. So I recommend that you start with, yeah, like thank you for asking. I would like to talk about this time when I had a really good startup idea.
Yeah.
However, when I pitched my idea to investors, I was rejected. So I asked for feedback around my rejection, and I learned that what was missing from my presentation, even though it was a really good idea, what was
Okay.
missing is I failed to communicate in terms that my investors would understand, in terms of business concepts such as this, and this. And one of the main reasons I want to go to HEC Paris is to
Yeah.
learn X, Y, and Z through this academic opportunity, this professional opportunity, and this more extracurricular opportunity. And there you can mention the coursework that you mentioned. I don't remember the name, Professor Romeo or something. And then
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can also talk about the internship opportunities, or what do you want to do post MBA. I'm not sure if you want to jump into entrepreneurship immediately, or you want to do some more traditional work after MBA and then move to a startup. And then
Yeah.
I think the social stuff that you mentioned around cooking, I think that's a little too common. So I would recommend not using that, or if you
Okay.
do use that, like use it at the end. Like everybody can say like, okay, I want to go there and I want to show people Indian cuisine, but
Yeah.
unless you have some real passion or real experience in cooking, or you have done professional things before, I would not recommend that. It just comes out a little bit light. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So let's go to the other questions real quick. So, can you tell me a little bit more about what you want to do right after your degree? What job are you looking for? And then, so that's your short term goal. And then, what do you want to do in the long term?
Yeah. Sure. First of all, talking about my short-term goals, I would like to be a financial consultant in a global as soon as I graduate. To be very particular, I like to focus in a corporate finance background. Uh, for example, I want to be a corporate financial analyst because I am very like I mentioned before that I pursued some courses on Coursera related to corporate finance, and I got mesmerized by the way, and I became very passionate about selecting projects, analyzing the mergers and acquisitions, and financial modeling. I was like very gripped to that. During my graduation, I plan to build my background in these principles, and I would like to work as a financial consultant. Uh, it would also help me. One of my venture I plan to build in the long run is based on this concept, is based on the credit system in India. The background related to financial consultant would really help me out. And speaking about
Okay.
long-term goals, I have, as I mentioned, we talked about before. I want to settle back in India. I have currently three ideas in my mind, and I want to choose using my using my graduate life in at HEC. I want to assess the idea which will have more social impact, because I believe social impact is necessary. And in my throughout my life, I choose projects. I choose to do any project only if it has a considerable social impact, or it would improve a life of even bunch of people. So I said before I had three ideas, and my HEC would help me in my experience in HEC, and would help me to choose between these three. And also,
Okay.
uh, I would like to teach personal finance on a part-time basis to high school students, because what I feel is personal finance is very important, especially in India, uh, and that too for high school students. I have gone through that stage, and I don't want to anyone go through that stage, and I'm really looking forward to teach personal finance.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. What did you think of your answer? How did you feel when you were about the content of your answer?
I felt I was not able to convey everything that I thought.
Okay. So one of
Yeah.
the things that I recommend doing is as a practice is
Okay.
to write down your answer, right? So to write down your answer, almost not just bullet points, right? So but the
Okay.
entire answer, like script it out. Why I think that's super helpful is that then you already know what you're going to say, and you can just work on the delivery of your answer, and you don't have to worry about coming up with ideas as you're answering questions. I felt like when you were answering, you were also thinking of, oh, okay, what else can I say? What else can I say? And
Yeah.
that, while your story was good and while you had good ideas, because they were coming in at a non-orderly fashion, sorry, it was hard for me to follow. Like, for example, so you talked about launching a startup, and then eventually, which you also talked about before, but then you talked about how you want to be a financial analyst, which is fine, which is totally fine. A ton of people join finance and then eventually start their own company. But
Yeah.
unless you tell me how would being a financial analyst really help in you becoming an entrepreneur later, I
Yeah.
would struggle to understand, like, why financial analyst then? Like, how would being a financial analyst help you in your journey of entrepreneurship? The other thing is, you mentioned towards the end, like your startups have been, or your projects have been revolving around social impact. And
Yeah.
I felt it came off a little bit vague, because you said that, like whenever you do a project, you always think about whether it ties to any social impact at all, and whether it helps a bunch of people. But
Yeah.
like social impact can be everything, right? Like it can be 1,000 different things. Unless you tell me, like what is your role in that and what kind of social impact you are looking for, you're
Okay.
running the risk of like, oh, you're just showing off by saying that, yeah, I want to help people. But unless you give me like actual specifics, it's going to be hard for you to convince your interviewer. And you have some stuff on your resume, right? Like you have some, Help Edge India stuff, you have some MHRD volunteering. So
Yeah.
I think you can maybe tie those in and talk about like how your startup is also going to be tied around social impact, but also you
Okay.
want to like, think about personal finance and maybe do something based out of personal finance,
Yeah.
because right now your interview has like too many different things. Like you want to be a financial analyst, you want to launch your own startup, you have three ideas, you also want to do social impact, you also want to do personal finance. I would restrict it to two things, like short term X, long term Y. Here is the link between X and Y, and here is how coming to HEC will help. That's it.
Okay.
Like I would not move beyond those two or three things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I had a doubt. Uh,
Yeah.
like, should I? You asked. You mentioned about the social impact. So should I also like define what is social impact is according to me and what I have done till now? Like what I feel a social
Um,
impact should be.
right. I mean, I think it depends. So when somebody asks you what are your short and long-term goals, they are
Okay.
asking for your professional goals. Okay. So
Okay.
if your long-term goal or your short-term goal involves anything to do with social impact, then yes, then definitely talk about your social impact experience. Talk about how your short or long-term goals have to do with social impact.
Okay.
However, if it's only volunteering and if it's only like it really has nothing to do with your startup idea,
Okay.
then I wouldn't worry about it. Like then I wouldn't talk about social impact as much as you did.
Okay. So should I give my ideas and explain about the possible social impact it could have? Would that help?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Like if you are talking about your startup idea and eventually being an entrepreneur, I do
Okay.
think talking about how your entrepreneurship is going to impact people and how it's going to have a big social impact component, yeah, that would be very helpful.
Okay.
All right, so let me jump a little bit. Let me ask you a few more behavioral questions before we wrap up. Okay, these generally happen a lot in MBA. It may not happen as much in MIM, but let's see if you have prepped for those, and let's see how you do. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
so okay, Abhishek, can you tell me about a time when you had to make a really tough decision? So tell me about what was the decision, how did you make it, and what was the
Yeah.
outcome of that decision?
Yeah. Uh, there are several instances where I had to make tough decisions. Many of them had to revolve around my extracurriculars in college. For example, I was the external affairs and hospitality manager in the event called Directors Cup. Directors Cup is a intra-college cricket competition held annually at NIT Goa. So the problem I faced there, the event was eventually planned out for 10 teams, but only 8 teams signed up, and the deadline was coming up. I had to bring other 2 teams to make the event successful. For that, I had to go to faculty who were really strict, amongst, like, they are not very friendly with students. I had to go to them. I had to convince them about like playing cricket. I had to go to the PhD students. I had to convince them, uh, and eventually I made up 2 extra teams and made the event successful. In the same event, I also faced a difficulty. Even at first, one team signed up. Uh, And after the deadline, they informed us that three players backed out from the team before the start of the match. So the
Okay.
situation was very critical for me. I had to go to the other team and persuade the non like the players who are on bench. Uh, they are called like extra players in the team of other teams. I mean, I had to
Okay.
convince them. I had to convince them to join the team and fill that gap. I had to explain the various impact they could have. Like I explained them that they might not get a chance with this team because their playing 11 is best. I had to analyze that and explain that to the players. And eventually, I brought extra two players to the team that had a deficit, and I made the event successful. Another instance was when I was event organizer of the event called IPL auction at NIT Goa. It was held during the annual Technocultural Fest called Saves. The problem I faced there was uh, due to the due to marketing team work. The event received a overwhelming response. We are planning for 10 teams. The event was for 10 teams and 20 teams signed up. So I had and the event time was coming up. I had a really tough decision to make for which 10 teams to select. Then I had an idea. I had modified the rules, like every team should consist of four members. I just added extra rule to uh, no two team members can be classmates. Not more than two teammates can be from the same graduation year. Yeah, so eventually I it helped me to sort out five teams, and 15 teams were remaining with me. And the I conducted a quiz related to cricket knowledge of the team, and according to the points, I shortlisted 10 teams for the event. It was basically first time any event faced that. I had to overcome that. Never before any event received such a overwhelming response at my college. So yeah, this was how I handled different issues.
Okay. So, okay. So I think, okay, good stuff. So the first of all, when I ask you, when your interviewer asks you for a behavioral question, I would recommend just doing one, right? Like two questions will become like two responses is not necessary. I would rather go into details of just one. The second thing is this question was not about, tell me about a time when you showed leadership, or tell me about a time when you had to convince people. I felt that if I had
Okay.
asked you those questions, I think this would have been a better response, like your first one. um, when
Yeah.
we are asking about a tough decision, the best way to tackle it is to tell me what that decision was, right? And then tell me
Okay.
the implication of making the wrong decision. So, for example, in your second response, you mentioned that like you had too many teams and you were not sure how to select specific people for teams. I
Yeah.
felt that was a clear, okay, that's a decision problem. For
Yeah.
the first answer, I wasn't really sure what decision you're taking. It felt like you didn't have enough people and you had to like sign up more people. But that didn't involve a decision, right? Or taking a decision, did it? Or did I miss it?
No, I was saying 10 teams signed up for which was a limit. One team
Okay.
was falling, had a deficit before the match.
Right.
1 hour before the
Sure.
match, a team was short of three players. So the decision I had to take a call on was whether to play go on with the match or cancel the match, or like eliminate the team and like blacklist them for entire year, or like should I persuade more players, or I had a decision to make, like should I continue with that team, continue with that match or not.
Okay. So I would say, like now that you explain that to me, it becomes a lot more clear. So
Okay.
definitely include that in your answer. So it's like, like, okay, so this team wasn't ready, and this like some people like never showed up in the team, and now I was facing this decision on I could stop this team for playing. I could cancel that match, or
Okay.
I could persuade people to join the team and play on their behalf. And like doing the first would lead to this, doing the second would lead to this. I chose to do this because I didn't want to cancel the tournament. I did not want the players who showed up to be disappointed, and I wanted to be there for them. So that's why I
Okay.
did A, B, and C to get it done. So I think that sort of
Yeah.
lays out the decision better. That sort of tells the interviewer what are some of the challenges and what are some of the ways you overcame those challenges. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does.
Okay. So next question. So Abhishek, can you tell me about a time when you disagreed with someone, and what did you do?
Yeah. Speaking of the same event, as we talked earlier, the IPL auction event held at NIT Goa, I was the event organizer, and above me was the committee, organizing committee of whole entire technical fest, which also had professors, uh, student leaders in them. Not actually student leaders from my class, like they were the PhD students. They were like director was also part of that team. So the thing I had to face there was, as I mentioned before, 20 teams signed up. I had to like cut off them to 10. Uh, but I had to change the rules. I said I changed the rules, but I changed it at very short notice. So the implications, the organizing committee they didn't agree with me to change the rules because that would be unfair. They thought it would be unfair. I had a task before me to convince them to make to make sure that they agree to this, because this was only the way, because the event was due in 6 hours, and we like in the evening, and I faced this problem in morning, and the organizing
Right.
committee was disagreeing with my idea to they were totally like you can like cancel the whole event or continue with 20 teams. I had a task before me, so I really convinced them, and I made them like every signed up team, when they come to the event, they have to pay the entrance fee. Initially, they don't
Okay.
have to pay, but they have to pay when like entering the event area. So I have convinced them that the revenue that can make and the audience they can miss. I feel the entire attraction for the technical fest was IPL auction, because in India everyone is interested in cricket, and it was the only cricket event held at that festival on that year. So
Okay.
everyone was eagerly waiting for that, and I said everything to them, and I also lastly realized make them realize the revenue it could generate, the audience response it could generate. Even a YouTube live, we went YouTube live for that event, and like got approximately 2,500 live viewers. It was first time in a college that a event got such a response. Yeah, so
Right.
I explained everything to them, and eventually they agreed.
All right, cool. I think this was I think this was definitely a slightly more well prepped answer. I liked it. I think there were some clear results and some
Yeah.
clear choices that you had to make. What I didn't have though is like whenever you disagree with someone or a concept, one thing that you have to really talk about is the stakes that are involved. So, for example,
Okay.
when you talk about disagreeing with a thing, you need to tell me about why disagreeing was important, and that generally should tie back into maybe your values or maybe your ideas. But also, you need to tell me about what would happen if you didn't disagree, right? So, what was
Okay.
on the line that you wanted to make sure that doesn't happen? And I'm not sure if I got that from the answer. So if you could clarify, like, what did you disagree with, and what would happen if you did not disagree?
Yeah, sure. The thing I disagreed with was 20 teams signed up, and the idea I
Yeah.
chose to eliminate some of them was to change the rules without
Sure.
not notice. Like the team members should consist not more than any two team members in a team should be from the same graduation year. So the organizing
Right.
committee disagreed with it completely. The stakes
Mm.
it had was the cancelling of the event. The event was to be cancelled because we were not prepared for 20 teams. The event, as me as an event organizer, and I had a team of four. We weren't
Okay.
prepared for 20 teams to handle 20 teams. We were specifically like from the first we were visualizing 10 teams, and we planned according to space, everything we planned according to 10 teams. So if we disagreed with that, a lot of if I agreed with the disagreement of the organizing committee, the implication that
Mhm.
could have been the loss of money invested and time invested, because a lot
Okay.
of money was invested in buying, like renting out the LED screens for IPL auction event. And also the another implication it could have was loss of audience, because audience from my college is situated in a like a strategic location. It is in between five engineering colleges, five universities. So every student from different universities attended that event. And if it could like it was the sole reason they came to that event and eventually participated in all others. So if the event was cancelled, they wouldn't come. I feel they wouldn't have come, and the audience would have been like the event. Sorry, the festival in whole would not be a grand success. Yeah, and agreeing on the other side, when
Okay.
the yeah, if the organizing committee agreed with me,
No,
uh, yeah,
I
they,
got it. Yeah.
yeah.
No, go finish your thought for sure.
Yeah, yeah. The on the other side, if organizing committee would have agreed with me, yeah, they have agreed,
Mhm.
but the possible implications could have been the success of the festival as a whole, garnering at least the cost involved in that event. But what we planned, we got more through. In the event, we planned for like some extra popcorn machine. We put down a vending machine there for the audience, and
Okay.
we got some extra revenue than expected.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. I think that makes sense. I think the revenue element is important, and also maybe talk a little bit more about how canceling the event would be a disaster, and also how
Okay.
why having people from different cohorts was more helpful. Okay, so the last part of this interview is you asking me questions. So I'm not going to answer them obviously because I've never been to HEC Paris, but I want to
Yeah.
see what kind of questions you're asking and then give you feedback. So cool. Abhishek, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I definitely have. I was particularly impressed by Career Research Center on Risk at HEC. So the question I had was, uh, do the Career Center on Risk work on the idiocentric risk, like I mean the risk which cannot be predicted? Because in the website I was not able to see the every detail. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, I wanted to know that first question. And the second question I had was related to the Amundi chair at HEC. Uh, while when I talked to different alumni, they said it was a research chair there and was open to students. While in your website it stated that it is not open to students at HEC. So could you clarify that?
Cool. So I think this is a question that is really, really specific. So generally, because your interviewer may or may not know anything about risk or what's the career research center looks like. So what I would recommend is only ask questions where your interviewer can talk about themselves. So that would be, asking about their experience, asking about, what they liked about HEC, how was their career transitions, and
Okay.
nothing that is trying to answer a question for you, because that you can ask admissions over email, or you can like contact them over the phone, and anything that
Yeah.
is
Right.
logistic, I wouldn't recommend asking that. Does that help?
Yeah. Yeah. It completely helps. So I should like
Okay.
ask more general questions relating to their
Yeah, and
experience.
try to get that's correct. And try to get them to talk about themselves. Try to get them to be a little nostalgic about when they were in HEC, what did they do, and stuff like that. I think that
Yeah.
would be a better question. Do
Yeah.
you have any other question for me?
No, no, no. You clarified everything, I guess. The question I had was not clear. Like, should I directly ask them to introduce themselves in the last part?
No, no, they would generally do it for you. Like they would either do it at the end where they can maybe talk a little bit more about, their experience, why did they pick HEC, or maybe they will tell you
Yeah.
right at the beginning before asking you questions. So I wouldn't worry about that. They would do it for you. I mean, if they
Okay.
don't, that would be really weird. So I think they would do it.
Yeah.
All
So
right,
yeah,
cool.
I got it now. Yeah.
Awesome. So I think we're almost out of time. So this was pretty awesome, Abhishek. I hope you got some help out of the mock interview. I don't know when your interview will be, but I think my main feedback for you is to structure your thoughts a little bit, maybe align your career goals with what you want to do post MBA. But I think then you'll
Okay.
be in good shape.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank
So
you.
for everybody else who's watching, we are going to start another mock interview in just about 15, 20 minutes. And that would be a more MBA driven interview. So stick around for that. We're going to be going live on YouTube again. And by the way, thanks again, Abhishek, for coming. Doing live interviews is not easy.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
Thanks to
really
you for
your
volunteering to take this
bravery.
initiative.
No, absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.